first ever Richmond River Rush. I've entered my boat into the 60 to 80 mile per hour circuit race. Had a few dramas with my boat.
Yeah, the fuel pump's not working.
Who done the wiring?
Did it work before?
Yeah.
I'm just down here, just across the border in New South Wales at a little town called Woodburn, where we're going to hold the first ever Richmond River Rush. So today you're going to see ski boats racing and power boats, and also they're going to have a drag race shootout, which will be about a 500 metre dash. Should be some action. I've entered my boat into the 60 to 80 mile per hour circuit race, and also going to have a play in the drag race shootout, so it should make for a good weekend. I'll try and cover as much of the event as I can. It could be a bit difficult because I'm a driver as well, but I'll try and capture as much footage as I can and come along for the ride. Should be a good weekend.
Love carbies, eh? My SCV says the same thing. Do you reckon it needs more choke?
You do 2 carbs at a time. That's what I did last time.
So you want top like that and sorry, I thought you meant just try and right go. Fuel pump?
Fuel pump's not working.
Oh, that's why it's so quiet. Just hang on, let's work out why that's not going.
Why I wouldn't have any power to the...
Do you want to get out of here?
Yeah. See, that button lights up, but it has nothing switched to it. This is just the bilge and my fuel pump, but when you turn them, they don't light up. So I've got no power to the bilge and no power to my fuel pump.
Is there a fuse box for these?
It's built into this.
You're running the 80 mile class?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I might as well get I don't want to go by myself.
I've only got a fuel pump hooked up to here and my bilge.
Yeah.
They usually light up. These ones that have nothing hooked up to them are lighting up. But
right. Grab you got a star screwdriver? Just pull that out and we'll bypass it.
I'm glad it's fucking not humid or hot.
Wait until you put a suit on.
Yeah. Oh, the only fucking suit I'll be putting on is my birthday suit at the pub.
Sold on that.
Top one?
Yeah, give us a look.
Straight onto that.
Bang it on there.
Oh, now...
Oh.
Nah, it's fucking... There's a fucking short somewhere, isn't there? Because now...
Yeah, because now that one isn't working.
Yeah.
Who done the wiring?
Got him! Got him!
That's all hooked up. It all goes here. Hold on. Yeah, that fuse.
Yeah, that fuse is
In one side, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now just try to hit that fuel pump. Yep.
You've got it hooked up to the bait tank, that's why.
Why does the fuse have to blow right when I'm about to race?
It's always the way.
Got the 90 mile now or the 60 to 80?
Yeah, it's here now.
Okay.
welcome back. So I thought I'd just give you a bit of an outro or a wrap up of the Richmond River Rush boat event. It was quite difficult for me to vlog and film the event whilst taking part in it at the same time. So I hope what you like what I've pieced together so far for you to watch. I entered the circuit racing, the 60 to 80 mile per hour class. There wasn't as many boats as expected, so they threw us all together in the 90 mile per hour class, which I think there was a total of somewhere between 4 boats and 6 boats at any time, depending on if people had issues or if they were still racing or dropped out. But it was a lot of fun. As for myself, in the first race there was 3 of us in our category, but unfortunately right when the start happened 2 boats broke down, so it was just myself. And in that race I had a few dramas with my boat. The dash, it was lighting up with some red lights, which is the warning for my EGT sensors telling me that the motor was leaning out. Once I was heading down the straight, the red lights were coming on right when I'd get to about 76 to 80 mile per hour. It would just die in the arse and run out of fuel. That was a bit of a headache. I went back into the pits and drilled out my jets to give it more fuel. So in the second race, the sensors didn't come up on my dash, so the motor wasn't leaning out, but hitting the wash with the other boats in the race, my cowling had popped off and popped sideways a bit, which in turn snuffed the bottom carby, so the boat once again wasn't running that right either. As for the third race that I managed to enter, it was probably the most action-packed race, but unfortunately my batteries had died in my GoPros by then.
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
So that was a bit unfortunate, but once again, it was my first circuit race. It was a lot of fun going down and supporting the powerboat community down that way. Woodburn was smashed by the recent floods, so it was good to try and generate some income and get people down there in the town of Woodburn. I look forward to the next one. I'd like to go back down there and do it again for sure, no doubt. I'll piece together what footage that I did get, and hopefully it's some good content for you to watch. I've had a bit of time to look at my dash and go through some of the data logs and have a close look as to what the engine was doing when it was leaning out and the warning signals were coming up on the dash. So I'm still working all this out. Some of you might have your head around these dashes already. They're usually used in like a 2-stroke go-kart, but I'll just run through some of the things that I've noticed and what I've come to see for myself. So this was my first race. You'll see I did 4 laps, and my EGTs, as you can see here, when the warning lights did come on, it was up around 878, 806. I know some people's motors, like other guys that I know, like Clinton and Scott, their EGTs will run up around the 1000 mark. Some Scott's even runs up around the 1250, 1350 mark, which is really pushing the boundaries. But everybody's motor's going to run different depending on heads, setup, their fuel injected, I'm carby, props. There's a whole heap of different variables, but as for mine being set up, this is where the warning signs were coming up. So I was doing 6,700 RPM and at average speed of 74 miles an hour. It was starting to lean out, and that's when the red warning lights would come up on this dash. 1 red light would come up, then 2, 3, 4 and 5 and so on. And when it got to 5, that's when I knew something was up, and that's when I would back off on the throttle. These lights would disappear and it would actually reappear as a green light, 1, 2, and that's when I would step back on the throttle again. the boat would respond really well. It would take off again considerably well, but once again it would lean out of fuel and the red lights would light back up here on the dash again. And that's where you will see the different changes here and the different laps. Obviously you've got the different RPMs, 6.7, 6.5, 6.66 and so on, with the different air fuel ratios, once again getting up around that 878 700 mark, which is obviously where my EGTs were starting to tell me something wasn't right. So I'm slowly working this out with the tune and that. Another thing I noticed also was before I got to start my race one, I was finding it really hard to start my boat for some reason, and it only just happened in the last few days. And I've worked out that was probably because your primer here, as you can see, it has turned on its side and it's actually kinked the hose. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just unclip that hose that goes to the top carb there, and I'm going to just run it around the outside here just to allow to get rid of that bend and see if that helps prime the carb up for it to start easier. Because I don't know if you've seen in some of the videos that I've got, the only way I could get it to start while I was in such a mad panic and a rush while they were calling us up to race is I would hold both my hands over the carbs here and get my friend to start the motor, and it would then prime it and start. I also have a fuel pressure regulator down here. Now this one that I've just bought from the cheap auto spares, it only goes to 5.5 psi. So I'm starting to ponder whether or not this is actually allowing enough fuel to go through the fuel line and keep fuel up to my motor. I do have a fuel pressure gauge here. I mean, 3 on idle is ideal, but at wide open throttle it could be leaning out and could be considerably dropping. So what I'm going to do is I might just eliminate that fuel regulator and take it out and put a joiner in it and see what sort of pressure this is going to run off my fuel pump. I do have a Carter lift pump down in there. So as long as my carbs aren't going to overfuel and have fuel spilling out and create the possibility of a fire, I'm hoping that we can monitor what my fuel pressure is, and hopefully that eliminates the problem of my boat was lagging and it just seemed to lay over and run out of power. So I'm going to make those few changes, and hopefully I'll run it up on the muffs and keep an eye on that fuel pressure gauge and see if that helps me at all, until I can drop the boat in the water and hold it pinned and see if I've made an improvement there and got rid of one of my problems. So another cool thing is you can actually reenact the race. So it's recording me coming down this straight, making the turn, and it's recording all my speeds, RPMs, in lifetime as I was racing. As you can see, I've come around the bend there. I'm almost sitting 63, 70 mile an hour, and this is where I'm backing off and on the throttle, as you can see via the RPMs, because of how it was running out of fuel and leaning out. But that's pretty cool how you can preview and replay that. So I've since made those minor adjustments. As you can see, I repositioned the primer line to the top carby, and the motor started great straight away. A few clicks of the key, and it fired considerably a lot better than what I was dealing with on the weekend. I eliminated the fuel regulator, and it seems on the gauge that my fuel pressure still won't read over 3.5 psi on the gauge, even though that low pressure fuel pump is meant to be 5 to 7 psi. So I'm still leaning to wonder whether that is a faulty fuel pump. It might be worthwhile me investing in maybe a Holly Red. I see online a lot of people swear by the Holly Reds, and I was speaking to another guy in America and a couple other guys I know, and on their carb motors they run anywhere from 5 to 8.5 pounds or psi to the carbs. So maybe I could pick up a bit more horsepower there, just getting enough fuel to the motor. Maybe it wants more fuel, and I could pick up a lot more performance and therefore pick up more speed and more mile per hour. So that's something I'll probably have to look into in the future. But maybe in this next test I'll drop the boat in the water and see if it will run a bit better without the fuel reg in it. Just blowing through the fuel regulator itself, it does seem restrictive, as opposed to me just putting a joiner in it now as well. So I'll keep you posted and let you know if I make any progress there. Alright, so we're back down the ramp. I've made the changes since the Richmond River Rush. I've eliminated the fuel regulator, so it's just running off the pump. We're just going to go out and give it a quick hit and see if it's got rid of that spot where it was laying over at full throttle. We should know if we go faster than 76 mile an hour, we've made an improvement. See how we go. Looks like I'm always getting this out my bung. It seems to be wet wood, not good. Starting to think my boat's waterlogged and the floor's got rotten wood in it, so might have to cut the floor out at some point in the near future to make any gains. Right, so I've pulled the fuel tank out, and it looks like there's a lot of water there in the bottom of my boat, and the floor is definitely wet and there's chunks of timber in there. I'll show you. So it's pretty grimy, and yeah, the drain holes in the floor, if I put my finger in there and feel around, the timber's definitely wet where the fiberglass floor hasn't been sealed correctly. So at some point this floor is probably going to need to be cut out because the stringers are waterlogged. But I'll just try and dry it out and seal it up the best I can for now, to try and limit any more water getting in there, and hopefully it can dry out over time. And I'll clean this fuel tank up and get a new fuel filter because it's full of crap at the moment. So I'll go and buy a new fuel filter as well and put that new fuel reg and fuel pump on tomorrow morning as well, and go out for another test, because as you can see yesterday I actually went slower, and I was thinking that's probably because the boat's full of water. We had some torrential rain the other night and the boat filled up because I don't have a cover for my boat. And it was probably actually getting too much fuel flow because I took the fuel reg off. So I just need a quality pump that's going to keep the correct pressure to the motor, and a quality regulator that's going to regulate it as well. So I'll see if those little changes will improve tomorrow as well. I might even drop the boat in this afternoon and have another test as well with the reg, my old reg back on, but I've turned it up another couple of notches. So another thing I've worked out whilst looking is my fuel filter. It's extremely small, not to mention it has a lot of crap in it. As you can see, I've got 3/8 fuel lines, and that is 3/8. You can see the difference in the fitting size there. Much different comparison. See if that helps improve something as well. Alright, welcome back guys. So we're on our way down to a friend of mine, Clinton White's Whitewater Marine, where my friend Scott's going to be. He also races the Fat Chance tunnel deck. This morning he's going to help me hook up a new Aeromotive fuel pump and Aeroflow fuel regulator. So it's pretty much the best thing that you can get for my current setup. So the poor man always pays twice, you know, buying cheap alternatives. You're always better off reaching into your pocket and getting the better parts first, so then you can eliminate small issues like that. I think he was also talking about swapping out the water fuel separator filter that I have, after discovering yesterday that my fuel filter that I did have on it was blocked up with swarf from when I had my custom fuel tank made. So that helped out a lot yesterday when I tested it. Easily cracked 80 mile an hour. It wasn't laying over or anything like that. So I was pretty pleased to have found the issue was only like a $10 part. Alright buddy, hit your pump on. Fill that up. Fill her up, buttercup. So we're here at Whitewater Marine, just got the new fuel reg and pump fitted. now running 6 psi, so hopefully pick up a bit of power. The weather's not looking that great for testing, but hopefully we get a break. Alright, welcome back again guys. This is a follow-up video to the other day when I dropped the boat in and tested the fuel system without the regulator in. We actually went slower. Unbeknownst to me, the pump actually wasn't pumping the correct amount of flow and PSI when we tested it. So we've just dropped the boat in now, and we're going to test it now with the new fuel pump fitted and the new regulator and the new fuel filter. So we were able to crank the fuel pressure up to 6 psi to the carburetors, and we'll see if that makes a difference, and we'll be able to test. I've got a 26 pitch Ron Hill prop on currently, so my last best speed was 76 to 78 mile an hour, so hopefully we can make some improvements from there, and everything goes well without a hitch, so stay tuned. as our first test. The boat ran fine, but we actually went slower. We pulled 78.2 mile an hour. The GTs are slowly getting up there, and with the 26 pitch Ron Hill on, it's a step up from my 24 big ear chopper. We've obviously dropped a substantial amount of RPM. We maxed out at 6,672 RPM, so we've dropped almost 600 RPM, which would explain the drop in mile per hour. I gather the Ron Hill has a smaller blade compared to my big ear 24, and considering this is a heavy boat, it's obviously not picking it up and pushing it out, but it's still performed really well. Maybe it could go a little bit faster if I dropped the motor 5 mil, because I have raised it 10 mil since running the 24 pitch chopper. So I could possibly drop the motor 5 mil and see if I could pick up some more speed. That'll probably be my next test, or I might even in my next test put the 24 pitch chopper back on and see how it performs with the motor raised 10 mil from when I tested it last time, where we pulled 80.8 mile an hour. So after having a little think, I've come to the conclusion, as you can see here, I've marked on the side of my jack plate as I've been coming up. Now, the last time when I had my 24 pitch big ear chopper on, it was that middle mark there. So I've since raised it 10 mil. Now, I think obviously with the 26 pitch chopper, it's obviously has more blade, so it's obviously dropped RPM and speed. So before jacking it to try the 26 pitch a bit more, I'm gonna take the boat home and I'll put my big ear 24 back on and see if I can make any improvements with that 10 mil that I have raised it. And if I don't pick up any RPM or speed with those changes, I will know that the 24 is maxed out, or it'll either go faster or it will generate more slip. Probably try and drop the boat in tomorrow, and with the 24 back on, and see if I can make any improvements with raising at that 10 mil. If not, I'll have to continue to raise the motor to pick up the RPM for this 26 pitch Ron Hill chopper that I have on.
Oh no.
So just on our little trip back then, we actually picked up a bit more mile per hour and possibly a little bit more RPM. We were going into the wind and I did give it a lot more trim, so possibly got a bit more air under the hull, which could have helped us. As you can see, 6,848 RPM, 80.3 mile an hour. EGTs are still pretty low but safe. But yeah, so it just goes to show the conditions. They were a bit rough out there today, so it was, you know, it wasn't exactly perfect clean water. But obviously we did make a little improvement on the way back. Like I said, probably because it was trimmed up a bit more. But like I said, I'm going to put the 24 pitch back on at this new height and just be sure that the 24 pitch big ear chopper is maxed out at its full potential. And if not, I'll put this 26 back on and keep slowly increasing the motor height and see if I can improve on those numbers that I've just showed you. I just thought I'd do a quick update while I'm here at home, show you a comparison as to the 24 to the 26. Now you can see from the top here that my 24 here, it has a heaps larger blade surface. I suppose most of you would call that a big air bunny ear chopper. That's my 26 pitch Ron Hill. As you can see, the blade is a lot smaller. I think the 24 definitely performs better on my boat because obviously it has a lot of hull, being a 20, close to 21 foot boat. With the bigger blade on the motor, it likes to help get the boat up and out of the water and get the wind under it. I'm sitting at just over 7,000 RPM with the 24, and currently with the 26 it's only spinning about 6,800 RPM. I have my markings here on the jack plate as to where it was last time I was on this line here, and I managed to pull 80.8 with the 24 pitch, and I then jacked it up 10 mil and I put the 26 on. So I'm going to put the 24 on and try it at this new height where it's 10 mil higher and see if I can pick up some more mile per hour. I'll just be able to monitor the RPMs on my dash, see whether I'll actually go faster or if it's just going to generate prop slip. Then I'll know I've maxed out the 24 and it's found its limits. And then as for the 26, like I said, at that height on my jack plate, I'm pulling 6,800 RPM at this height, but my mile an hour is just a little bit slower than the 24. Obviously continue to raise the motor up until I can get more RPM out of the 26 pitch and see if I can keep chasing those faster numbers and go from there. I also have a 28 chopper I can try once I find the limit to the 26. It's all new to me, it's all trial and error. If you got something to add, please let me know. I talk to a lot of guys in America and some other guys here in Australia, so they give me some good tips and guidance as to where I'm at. But currently I just think that my hull, a much heavier hull than a lot of the other boats out there. I like this old girl. As you can see in the video yesterday, the wind conditions were up pretty bad, but she just likes to sing over the top of that stuff and just plows through it. And the floor, I believe, has moisture in it, but once these summer months are over and it comes into winter and it's a bit cooler, I'll probably look at putting a new floor and new stringers and that in it, because I believe it is waterlogged, so I might pick up a fair bit of weight reduction there and even see a bit more mile an hour. That's where we're at. I'm just getting the boat ready now for tomorrow to go out and test and see if we can make some improvements with these changes. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, give me some input, feedback. Always happy to hear from you, and thanks again.